Thank you so much. That is actually super inspirational for kids and eternal kids like most of us. And I can relate very much to the courage element of what's the worst thing can happen if you're wrong. You can always be wrong in public. There's nothing worse than being wrong in public, and yet you have to take that risk. I think Anjali's story that is still in the making is a great example of also something that has characterized this year of moving between different parts of this industry. Many of us have moved between several organizations in our career journey, and specifically, I would think for fraud practitioners, researchers of all sorts, this does give you a superpower. It's traumatizing moving between different organizations and starting all over again or several times. But apart from courage and curiosity and the spirit of collaboration that this promotes, thank you again for that. This is an opportunity to reach events like these with like a perspective on different business problems and technology problems that we get to solve. So with that, I am happy to move on to the area where mistakes happen all the time and they're extra difficult to catch, machine learning in fraud prevention. We're going to invite the esteemed panelists, and I will just put this one. Okay. So the following three people, I've had the pleasure of being in various rooms with some of them, and I know that they know the feeling of being like the smartest person in the room. I'm sorry for possibly embarrassing you with that, and yet needing to get collaboration from everyone else. Dr. Gali Ellenblum from YouTube. You just sorry, a little. Well, so from a trust and safety leader from Google, if everyone can just come up to the stage and start setting up with the mics, because we have the dashboards on while we're speaking. Please, style. We don't need to be polite. This one, let's see if it's back to live, and if not, I'll stay standing up. So. Gali Ellenblum from Google, thank you again. Safe Browsing Manager at Iftah, Gideoni, former CTO at Forder, and Dorbank from Justt, all data science team lead. Everyone here are experts on machine learning. This will now work, good. So I can sit with you. And naturally, my first question to all of you is about that mix that Anjali just taught us about curiosity and collaboration. You've had a challenge and hopefully the pleasure of promoting successful technological collaboration between data scientists, analysts, stakeholders of all different parts of their organizations to promote effective machine learning and fraud detection. Tell us how. What are some best practices there? Gali, if you want to start.
I think, is this working?
Can we hear?
Yeah. Okay, good. First of all, Google and Alphabet in general is a highly collaborative culture. So I think collaboration takes center stage. What I have learned is that you have to walk a fine line of ensuring that everybody knows what everybody is doing, but nobody tries to do someone else's job. So if you're a data science manager, don't do the engineer's job for them. Don't come up with engineering solutions. Ensure that your engineers understand the data. Ensure that they understand the problem, but don't solve it. Don't give the solution. if you're a data scientist, and vice versa for analysts, for engineers. I think this for me is the hardest part of collaboration, but also the most important part. It's knowing, giving other people the credit that they understand, and let them solve their part of the equation.
And that goes into the whole culture of it. But I know that both Iftah and Zohar got to be on startups where my experience is that when you're a startup, you are not only, you kind of want to do everyone's job. Any stories and memories from these areas?
Yeah, actually, Justt, we have, like any startup, we have a lot of reorgs, a lot of changes, and a lot of overlapping areas. Specifically on the fraud domain, we have the data science team, we have the data analyst team, we have the product expert team, which also focus on card scheme regulations, not only fraud. The most practical tool that we use is to have a dedicated 15-minute session each week, only the team leads. So everybody talk about what they're doing, so make sure we're not overlapping each other. And if something is interesting, then we have an ad hoc session with all the relevant teammates. One with the product experts, and another one, like I said before, with the engineering and the DevOps. And those are two different circles. And yeah, it's the most practical method that works for us.
Yeah, Gali, why doesn't Google do 15 minutes for every team leader in Google every week for everyone?
We tried that, but there aren't enough minutes in a week.
And with Justt, you the focus on chargeback representation, correct? For as the business model for the startup, you are still at that point of the startup that you can afford this.
Yes, definitely. We have much less people. Still not Google. Yeah, still here. Yeah, so the opportunities for collaboration, creativity, I'm not sure if they are bigger, but we are less constrained in our whole domain.
For those who are not familiar, we'll still come back to asking a bit more about just product. You were there for several startups in your career, but for FraudCON, where you and I got to work together, we got to see that startup from a very, very small organization where we could definitely and did enjoy sitting down together to talk about throughout the day to enterprise level company.
Yes, that time we were over 559. I think that the most important aspect of collaborating successfully with machine learning experts is the acknowledgement of the different languages that we talk. So, establish in a very explicit way what will be the targets, what is expected from everyone, how success looks like in a very concrete way, when it will be achieved, and how can we tell that we're getting there or not, and fail faster if we don't get there. Now, trivial, but if we don't define these terms explicitly, each one of these groups understanding differently. So that's where the years of managing data scientists, analysts, and engineers. We do need to be very explicit because the languages are different.
Absolutely. And I think that so far everything we said that applies to any cross-functional team of data science, analytics, technology in general, probably. But let's talk more specifically about fraud fighting. How is it especially challenging or wonderful to apply machine learning to fraud fighting problems?
Machine learning, not collaboration.
Oh, right. That too.
Machine learning.
So I think I completely relate to what Anjali was saying about needing curiosity to fight fraud. I think fraud fighting in general, all of its flavors, attracts sometimes, I don't want to generalize too much, but sometimes attracts a specific kind of person who
Demented.
I would not say demented. Do not write this down. Someone who is smart, who is maybe competitive, but wants to do this in a socially acceptable way. So instead of competing with your peers, you compete with the fraudsters. Because fraud prevention is a little bit about who's smarter, me or the fraudster. And I think some of the things that Anjali was talking about and other things are on everyone's minds here. As our tools and our models, our algorithms become better, so do the fraudsters. If I'm using Bard or the other, I don't remember. But if I'm using an LLM to enhance my abilities, so are the fraudsters. And you showed this, help, I have a virus on my capital C computer. Bard wouldn't write a capital C. You can ask Bard, write a call for help that came from a human, and they would write that. I manage the anti-phishing team. You've all heard about the Nigerian prince or whatever scam, this FBI scam. I mean, this
out there. It's still
is
active. Stupid fraudsters succeed.
Yes, they do, but smart fraudsters use tools to make them look more like the actual FBI, who make them look more like someone you are likely to actually answer to, are also out there and doing machine learning, doing data science for fraud is sometimes about not lagging behind.
Yeah, well, I think going back to who's smarter, the frustrating part for me is that sometimes the question is down to who has more data near the fraudster. And that one I keep losing at. I don't have, I think even Google doesn't have more data than the typical fraudster.
Yes, or the typical, I mean, you know, privacy is really important.
Absolutely.
Anjali was talking about this as well. And before Google, I worked at Apple where, you know, I had access to basically zero data. And I still had to make decisions, and I still had to make the correct decisions.
In the right SLA.
In the right SLA, which is
Nothing.
yeah, sometimes in the order of milliseconds.
Yeah, I remember that from Porter days for sure, where making the right decision in time was super crucial. I think this is an area where the fact that Porter and Justt are sitting next to each other, living in different worlds in terms of the data. Iftah, I'm sure that this is still one of the things that that your career has been focused on, making the decision in time.
Yes. Decision in fraud usually can take several hundreds of milliseconds to make a decision payment fraud, but not on fraud where it should be transparent to the user, where it needs to be tens of milliseconds, wave of pages. And the main difficulty of applying machine learning in fraud, and we can talk about all the problems of the data science and the labeling and the biased classes, etc. But still, as Gali alluded to, the main problem of machine learning fraud is that it faces an intelligent adversary. So when you leave the machine learning to do its own thing without supporting it, it will catch well all the stupid fraudsters. But the most damaging ones are the ones that can make a home run on us on things that did not manifest themselves in the training data that we have. And each company and organization coming to different solutions to that. We call it hybrid AI, with the way teams of analysts support the machine learning, but this is the most interesting problem because it's not that we can apply well enough game theory and min-max mechanisms here. We do need to apply, I would say, traditional machine learning and support it to get a fast enough reaction cycle, given all the bad and noisy labels that we have, to be able to combat an intelligent adversary. That's what's interesting about machine learning fraud for me.
Absolutely. Well, I think that what I have learned since I started doing community stuff in fraud fighting is that there are attackers all over the world who go to this type of events and apply to especially go into the virtual ones because they want to learn about machine learning and fraud prevention. They would love this panel. I really, really hope that
Some of
you I have sat through the vetting and tried to do my absolute best to, and then registration takes forever. Because I did get applications. Sometimes it's funny, right? You get an application to the Fraud Fighters Meetup, or I got Mazakin Smith application still waiting. That's a character from this Lucifer, so I was very happy to ask for her LinkedIn profile for verification, and still waiting for the LinkedIn profile. Sometimes we do get really convincing LinkedIn profiles of attackers of various sorts who want to learn more about what we do. They're very intelligent, curious, collaborative, courageous, adversarial, and that is usually very exciting, sometimes really frightening. But
on the dark web, we find manuals of how to fight for it.
Yeah,
for example, specifically.
I remember.
It's not in English, right? and it's all paid for by Bitcoin. And the price is going up, so we must be doing something right.
Yeah, we will have a talk later today about why Bitcoin is no longer the first preference for being paid for tips on how to defeat any of the companies here. Yeah.
I want to add something to what Iftah was saying, which is another problem with fighting fraud, with machine learning for fraud. And Iftah alluded to this in saying something that wasn't in our training data, is that you don't want to have to play whack-a-mole. If you don't know this game, it's when moles pop up and you have to whack them. And whenever you whack one, a different one comes up. And if you solve, so for example, I was working at Apple on iMessage spam, and if you completely seal iMessage spam, you get calendar spam, or you get, something else spam. So you want to make sure that you make the road harder for the fraudsters, make them tired, but also don't leave out your other flanks unprotected.
Yeah, especially when you're the one in charge of all the different flanks.
Yes.
Going back to who has more data and who's smarter, so Dor, I think I always imagine Justt as living in a heaven of data where the transaction has already happened and now you have all the data that you need. Is this, please don't crush my dream?
No, so it's far from it. So basically, we analyze the post-transaction, whether it's a fraud or not. We can see ourselves as a complementary product for fraud and such products. So on one side, we have major advantages. For example, we can see all the post-transaction communications, or let's say you have a fraud ring of 50 transactions. So we can analyze the first one by the other ones, which is not available for the fraud prevention. But on the other hand, we get much less data. For example, the entire customer journey is not exposed to us. And in general, merchants are a bit more reluctant to give us the entire data because it overwhelms them. This is with respect, I'm sure you guys have much more data than I do. But it's okay, I mean, because we're not decisive for the fraud prevention. We actually see ourselves as complementary. We had a lot of nice stories that we used the wisdom of hindsight to uncover some major fraud rings. I think it corresponds to your previous question. I think that what I like most specifically on fraud is that you unveil some interesting stories. Not to discredit the other domains, but when I get I don't know, like a nice image classification, it doesn't give the same wow effect. Like unveiling a very big fraud ring with the exact explanations, everything, and you see how the merchant reacts to it. I mean, this is the main effect I like.
And then you get to tell the bank that you're about to represent a chargeback thanks to this cool fraud ring that you detected.
Yeah, actually it's vice versa. I know it's a bit different. I mean, if it's true fraud, then the main advantage for us is to claim whether there are different technicalities in it. The cases we will go to the bank is when we find friendly fraud. So I'm not sure if you're all familiar, but thanks for the intro beforehand. You see a lot of cases of friendly fraudsters. So this is, you need to trust me because I'm probably most of you are not familiar with it. It's also very cool. You see, I don't know, like a big friend cycles, and each of them orders a different order for his friend, and then they all complain it's a fraud ring. So because they didn't order it, something like that. And a lot of interesting stories, and you go to the bank.
I gotta say that you got to trust me is something that I think data scientists are no longer ever able to say when sense explainability comes into the picture and you have to, for audit purposes or any kind of purposes, showcase that the machine learning model has made their decisions ethically, responsibly, correctly, as accurately as possible with the data, the missing data that you have. I think I will just go to the last question, and from there you will be able to draw the cards that you want. So my last question: is it worth it to really keep investing in those complex model, or when do you know that it's worth it to move from naive, probably rule-based mechanisms and defenses into machine learning, not just because you need to sprinkle some buzzwords all over your problem to make it sexy, but because it needs it and fund it, because you need it to properly address the problem and keep explainability and keep everything that we just said.
Am I gonna start? All right. I think the answer to that is that fraud moves fast. And if the fraudster figure out your system, can reverse engineer it, they'll adapt, they'll change, and they'll beat your system. So you need a system that changes as fast as or faster than fraudsters adapt. I have found that rules systems are often slow to adapt, or if they're fast to adapt, they're inaccurate. And I always say when I meet someone who's just entering the field of fraud, that prevent fraud is the easiest thing in the world. All you have to do is decline every single transaction. Because our purpose is not preventing fraud. Our purpose is preventing fraud while allowing non-fraud transactions to go through. So, to me, the answer is if fraudsters are adapting more quickly than retrain, change your system, then you need to change the system.
Thank you.
I'd like to take the startup point of view. I mean, obviously, you're going to start with rule-based engine. You don't see any startup going after the ML predictions. But when do you want to go from the rule-based sophisticated, maybe data science or machine learning-based engine? So there are two advantages, right? The first one is the ability to scale, and the other one is to break the human barrier, to do something that an analyst can't find. And this is the point where when you want to move forward, when you reach the plateau and the analyst can do any better, or you're lucky to reach scale and you need a more scalable solution. And the most important thing, I think, when you start small with a rule-based engine, to lay the proper foundations, so it won't be horrible to move forward. You need to document your rule engine, document the changes, document the labels of the different fraud, so it will be easy. Otherwise, it will be a nightmare.
That's the startup perspective. I've never seen proper documentation at a startup.
Lesson learned. Lesson learned.
You really do work in a heaven.
Now, in any point in time, when you fight fraud and you have machine learning, there will always be one rule or two rules or 15 rules that if you add them on that point in time, you will be more accurate. With better recall and better precision, you will decline, you will insult less legitimate people, and you will stop more fraud. But let's not forget that what we mainly do with the machine learning is managing the complexity. The machine learning is able, with less code and in a manageable way, to train again and again on new data and learn by itself what's important. So we should really be able to do this always important trade-off and minimize the amount of rules that we maintain in any such system. Why do we need rules at all or additional inputs at all? For the same reasons we talked about before, because our adversary is intelligent and because they have better labeling. They know same day if they succeed, for example, in a payment transaction. We may not know it for weeks until charges come. And so we need to have some stopgap measures. But we need to be very careful not to overdo them. We need to minimize them so the whole system remains sustainable, scalable into the one issue, but we manage complexity for many reasons. And this is one of them.
Yeah, and I think when you talk about insult, you also touch on the fact that control groups and honeypots are both something that you sometimes just cannot do in e-commerce and banking, fintech in general. In cyber protection, very often you cannot afford the precision to go anywhere below or anywhere above what would create loss and insult, because both are just that. So with that, we will thank you all again for sharing insights and remind that many of the things that cannot be quoted, and because these are the people, especially since I had the pleasure of working with many of you, that teach how to fail faster, so that you won't fail harder eventually. You will succeed sometime. Thank you so much again, and we will continue. We're not taking questions this time.